Okay, going to our Black Mirror rant one more time here. Or I'm sorry, actually a few more times. With this episode known as Eulogy. Episode 5. And this one has a really good concept of it. I'm not really sure I like the execution of it. But all in all, I kind of feel like this is an episode that I feel like you could have gone into more... There could have been more that could have happened here. But I'm going to explain the concept of this episode. Okay, first of all, it's got Paul Giamatti on it, which he's a big name actor. I'm actually surprised they got him for this episode. And he's acting his heart out in it, so I appreciate that. So Paul Giamatti is playing as essentially Paul Giamatti's self. If you've seen any film with Paul Giamatti, you pretty much know how he is. So he's contacted by a company that is called Eulogy. And yes, eulogy, like the sermon or the speech you give at a funeral. And he's told that that his friend Carol died, and Carol and Paul Giamatti's character Philip were once romantically linked in, I don't know, I forget what time that this was, like maybe the 70s, 80s or something like that. But they broke up a long time ago, and Philip has his regrets from it, but he's essentially moved on from that. And so what Carol wants to do is, what this company Eulogy wants to do is essentially go like, hey, we need some old photos of her for this memorial. Do you have any? And Philip does have a few, and he kind of scans them in. And then it's revealed that there's this new technology that Eulogy has, which allows essentially you to sort of step into the photo itself. Now, I like the concept of this. I actually think that, I think this is the reason why we have photos and why we have videos, is that we feel like we're sort of still there. Even though it's happened in the past and that moment's behind us, it's still with us whenever we want it to, thanks to the power of a photograph or a video. And I think that this episode is sort of trying to emphasize that, but it takes it to the next level. And this is something I've complained about in Black Mirror before, where oftentimes in the episode they will introduce this very far out technology, and the main character has no idea that this technology exists. Like, they're being introduced to it at the same time that we, the audience, is. I think that's a bad way to do this. I really feel like all it takes is just one character saying like, oh yeah, I've heard of this, but I've never actually tried it before. No one ever says that in Black Mirror. And I kind of feel like, shouldn't everybody say this? Because I kind of feel like if we had this, because here's what the technology is. It's a virtual reality kind of thing that you put on your head, and now you can walk into a photo. So it's very similar to that thing in Hotel Reverie. I don't know why I'm having a hard time saying that word, but which I've done a rant on that one. So essentially, this character can sort of step into a photo. Now, this is one of those episodes that could have really gone overboard as far as effects goes, and there are some really interesting effects with this photo. Because one of the things I like about this is that he cannot, he can step into a photo, but he can't really say, because I thought the episode was going to go this way. Like, you can step into a photo and then immediately the photo starts moving, and then whatever scene he's in, the computer sort of creates a simulation of that, and he can interact with things like that. They kind of don't really do that. A lot of things that happens is that this VR program creates a sort of thing called a guide. And this guide sort of, guides Paul Giamatti's character, Philip, in this kind of photo world that he has created. And then from there, I think we're seeing flashbacks from what Philip's memories were of this situation. And I kind of like that. I kind of think that what this story deals with is memory and the power of memory. And I actually believe that a few times that a lot of the photos that Philip has, he has literally cut out the picture of Carol in them, his former girlfriend, because apparently that's what you did. I mean, nowadays you can't really do that because, let's face it, most of our memories now are pretty much on digital, and a lot of them are kind of getting lost, really. I have to admit, if I really wanted to look at older photos from my phone, I think they're saved on a hard drive somewhere or a thumb drive somewhere, but I don't know where. But then again, I don't really have any inclination to just kind of do that because I'm living in the present. And I kind of really like what this episode does. It plays with this idea of how the past does haunt us sometimes, and how this stuff is important, and how we can miss things if we don't think about them too much. And that's kind of what happens on this here, because they show what happened. They show what happened to Philip and Carol. Apparently, they got into an argument one time or something, and apparently Philip cheated on her, and that's kind of what happened. And then so Carol sort of left him, but here's the thing, and this is where I'm kind of getting to spoilers. Remember I said that Philip has this guide who's sort of helping him along? Well, apparently that guide is essentially the program personification of Carol's daughter. And it's discovered that essentially Philip is the father of this daughter. And, you know, that's something Philip, of course, never knew about. And, so he's kind of having to come to this realization that, he had a daughter with Carol and never knew about it. And, you know, of course, there's a lot of lost time there. So naturally what happens is that as Philip is going through all these memories, he's seeing things. Like he's seeing like a note on the floor that he can't read or something like that. And because he's in the world of the photo and he can't interact with things, which I think is really interesting, because normally if you do something like this, that's why you would even go walk into a photo in the first place, because you would want to interact with things. You would want to see them. You would want to touch them. He can't really do that. He does discover some sort of old memory or something where he finds like this unread letter that he does discover, like in his memories, in his actual physical memories, not the virtual memories. There's an unread letter from Carol. When he reads the letter from Carol, he finds out that he could have met up with Carol and she would have forgiven him, and they could have gotten back together. And then they kind of show Carol like waiting at a certain point, that because the letter says, if you want to do this, I'll be waiting here. And unfortunately, Carol waited and eventually went on. And then she died like decades in the future. It's a very sad story, and I actually really appreciate Black Mirror for kind of going this direction. I didn't really expect this episode to hit me as emotionally as it did, and for that reason, I think I might want to watch this one again. I mean, there's a lot of ones that I had to admit, when I was going to do these rants, I thought about taking some time and rewatching these episodes. But then I thought, you know what, I really got it the first time, and the whole point of these rants is for me to be spontaneous about it and to show like, okay, what are my initial thoughts on it. This one, I have to admit, I'm willing to forgive the fact that they introduced this technology in here, and I like the fact that the technology could have been more advanced than it actually is showing. I like the idea that you can walk into a photo and stuff like that. But yeah, for me, if I like found an old photo, I mean, the first thing I would do is walk into it and basically tell the people, okay, you need to change this, you need to change this, you need to change this. Because I've got some old photos around that from memories that I'm kind of going like, oh, if only I could have warned them at the time. But we all have situations like that in our lives, and I think this episode really goes into that. So I really kind of enjoyed what they were doing with this. This is a very bittersweet episode. This, like I said, the effects I feel like are good, but they could have been, I feel like there could have been more done. This feels like more like something like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, kind of that type of film, or that type of genre that I think they're going for. And at the end, there's a really bittersweet scene where Philip suddenly remembers what Carol's face looked like, because he can't really see that. Because I have to admit, memory is very fickle. Like, for example, like I'm not an artist, but there are people that I haven't seen in years, and I could not. Sometimes I have a hard time picturing their face. Like, even like if they showed up, I don't know if I would even recognize them. And but in this case, Philip remembers Carol's face, and he sees her daughter, that is his daughter, playing the cello. So it's a sweet ending, and I gotta admit, I'm gonna recommend this one pretty highly. So Anyway, gonna get to this next episode, which is kind of gonna be a two-parter. kind of. We'll get to that.